So hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Sangeeta Sakri. I'm one of the assistant program directors for the emergency medicine residency at UCI. I hold a couple of other roles in the department, but tonight we wanted to talk about the diversity and inclusion efforts at UCI. So we have several members of our Committee for Inclusive Excellence that we have for the department. I'll introduce them in just a second and let them introduce themselves, talk a little bit more about their efforts. What we're going to start with just a brief overview. We have a video that we put together last year, so we'll show the video first, and then I'm just going to kind of run through a list of initiatives and efforts that we've gone through in the past year. So we just formed a committee about 1 year ago. Really wanted to focus on diversity and inclusion for the program. It's been a big interest of not only our residency program, but the entire emergency department, as well as all of UCI, the hospital in general, as well as the School of Medicine. So everybody's really on board with pushing our diversity efforts, and we have a great group of people that are on the committee. The committee is open to anybody, so if you guys do end up coming to us for residency, if you're interested in being on the committee, there's no application or anything. It's just anybody who's interested in being involved. So the people that we have on here today, other than me, you'll be hearing from Dr. Gabe Sudario, Dr. Isabel Gaze, Dr. Victor Cisneros, who's one of our fellows. One of our other fellows may be joining us as well. I didn't see him on yet. Ronnie Rivera. We have a couple of our residents on here. Matt Whitehead is on here. And then we also have a couple of our new interns who are just joining the committee. So this is the first event they're participating in. They're great resources as far as questions. We'll have a question and answer session toward the end. And you can ask them questions about why they decided to come to UCI if you would like. That's Callie Kirkham. And then Kenneth Starpong is the other one. I think that Kenneth may or may not be able to join us. But we're going to go ahead and get started with that video. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, let me know if you guys have any trouble with the audio.
We have an incredibly diverse patient population, and there is an incredibly diverse patient population in the United States. And so we're looking for residents who come from various backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, so that we can all learn from each other and learn more about our patients and better serve our patients. And so we are hopeful that we can recruit you here at UCI, where we celebrate diversity and we practice the values of diversity and inclusion and free speech and all those values that we need to make a wonderful residency program here.
Howdy, y'all. Just talking a little bit on diversity. Obviously, I'm a person that comes with, I think I have a diverse background. Look at the boots. And I'm just not someone typical, like a person I come from an Hispanic background. So being here at UCI, we see a lot of people that are from multiple diverse backgrounds. We have a large Hispanic community that we see here at UCI. We have a large Vietnamese and just a lot of diverse background that we see, and this is super important to us, not only as physicians, but just as our society as a whole.
So when I first moved to California, all of my friends were first shocked that I was moving to even the LA area. A lot of us have stereotypes, and I just thought of the whole LA area as plasticky Hollywood, and I never in a million years thought that I would come and work in Orange County. It was the OC, everybody was blonde and rich, and talk like Valley girls. So I almost didn't take a job here, and that would have been the biggest mistake of my life. Our patient population is super diverse. I speak Spanish to half of my patients at the very least. Our residency is more diverse than I would have ever expected, and we're trying to grow that. It's definitely a more diverse experience and something that's hugely important to us. So we hope that you guys see how diverse our patients are, how diverse our program is. Our hospital is really pushing for it.
So I think having culturally competent physicians is a very important part of delivering healthcare. Particularly, a story I like to share is that my mom just passed away from pancreatic cancer. It was very hard for her when she was first diagnosed, when she had to start taking a bunch of medications. She was surrounded by people who didn't speak the same language as her. And now being on this side, I can see how sometimes having a patient in front of you who doesn't speak the same language as you, it can be very difficult to deliver healthcare the same way. understand everything. And I think that her care could have been completely different if I had not been there, going to most of her appointments with her, teaching her how to take her medications at home. And I think a lot of that experience has helped me now as a doctor, speaking with patients who, they might not be Chinese or have the same culture as me, but I know that that is a significant challenge in providing care to people who are not from the same background as you. And it really helps you make that extra effort to make sure they understand everything and are on board with the plan and want to be a part of that plan.
So I'm originally from Taiwan, and I speak, my first language is Thai. Every time, not that often, so random that we'll have a Thai patient come to our emergency department, and then when I start speaking to them in Thai, they just look at me like, "D'accord, today I can really relate all medical concerns."
So Orange County has a huge LGBTQ population, and I feel like, given the space that we're in, UC Irvine has a unique opportunity to kind of intervene and kind of interact with patients who identify as LGBTQ and, really impact their health.
What does diversity mean to me? Diversity means bringing together people from different backgrounds, whether it be cultural backgrounds, sexual orientations, different upbringings, and all together to kind of diversify our program.
I feel like we have a melting pot of personnel speaking different languages and come from different backgrounds. I personally think it's fascinating because we have, I think, probably a lot of our staff, our physicians, our residents, and even people that we interview that come from different backgrounds. And I think that what that does, it really puts the department in a position where we're just not only talking about diversity and really encouraging it, but we have a good group of diverse people. It's amazing.
All right, guys. So I know that the audio might have been a little difficult. I couldn't mute my microphone because that's how you were hearing the video, was through my laptop's microphone. So I apologize if you weren't able to hear. The video is also posted on our website, so you guys, if you weren't able to hear very well, you can go back and watch the video at any time that's convenient for you. So I also just wanted to go through some of the things that we've done. Like I said, we just started the Committee for Inclusive Excellence last year, and we have worked really hard to just create different events. Last year we really wanted to focus on recruitment, and so we had a specific, what we called our inclusion day of interviews, where we selected 20 out of our 80 applicants were specifically somehow either they themselves had a diverse background or they were heavily committed to working with diverse and underserved populations. So it was really interesting to get that group of people together all on the same day to be able to have sort of shared experiences and hear each other's stories. It was just a really great group of people to meet with, and we were really excited to get a couple of our residents in our intern class from that day. So that's something we definitely want to continue. And I'm just going to let the other members of the Committee for Inclusive Excellence introduce themselves. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of our efforts. So some of the things you're going to hear about is we created an anti-racism book club, given everything that's been going on in current events over the past several months. We read How to Be an Anti-Racist and had an amazing discussion about that. We hope to have events like that every 2 to 3 months, not always with a book. We realize that sometimes that can be time intensive for people when they're in residency. So sometimes it might be a movie, or a documentary or something with a discussion following, but we'd like to have different activities planned for that. We have mentoring opportunities we're very close to the medical school, so we work with the Prime LC program and also the LEAD ABC program, as well as the RMSF program for residents and fellows, which Dr. Algazi will talk to you a little bit more about. So I'm gonna let people start. We'll start with Dr. Sudario. He can introduce himself, his roles, and some things that he works on.
Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Gabe Sudario. I'm a newly minted faculty here at UCI as of just the beginning of last month. But just a little background on myself. So I'm kind of born and raised from the Bay Area, first gen college student. I'm a half Filipino American, half kind of white mix guy who grew up in the Bay Area, trained at UCSF, and then did a fellowship here in media design and educational technology. And diversity has been very important to me in my whole, I would say, undergraduate all the way through medical training career, because especially as a first generation college student, there's just so much mentorship and support that I feel like I didn't have along the way that was very important to me, and to make sure that we are bringing up for the generations behind us in those mentorship programs. So a little bit about what I'm doing here at UCI right now. So I am Dr. Sakaria's assistant clerkship director for our EM clerkship here. And just to give a taste of some of the things we're doing within the clerkship, when we are allowed to have rotators, we did have a visiting scholarship aimed towards UIM applicants to come visit us, and we're hoping to expand that scholarship pool and continue that once we are able to have visiting rotators from outside of our institution. Within the School of Medicine, I currently work I'm the director of our summer pathway programs. So if any of you are interested, we are creating basically these summer academies, kind of summer camps for some of our specific outreach programs at UCI. So our Prime LC program, which is dedicated towards creating physicians who are versed in Latinx health. And then we have a new Lead ABC program at UCI for medical students who are interested in advancing Black Afro-Caribbean health and becoming leaders in that field. And so we're creating pipeline programs to better fill those. And we have probably one of the most diverse medical school classes that's coming in a very long time. So everyone who works on admissions is very proud of that fact, but we have a long way to go there. And I currently serve on the Inclusive Excellence Committee for the School of Medicine, where I've just been interacting with so many passionate, amazing med students who are doing really, really important work on the national level in terms of educating others about anti-Blackness in medicine. And there's just so many opportunities for residents to become mentors to these students, but also just to get involved on what are grassroots efforts, which are trying to institutionalize right now. And then finally, just working within the residency also, I've been part of the diversity committee here and seen so much of our efforts towards holistic review of our applicants and making sure that everyone's getting a fair shot when we're reviewing and interviewing applicants, and making sure that people aren't dropping off due to things like standardized test scores, and then we're really valuing life experience and what everyone brings to the table. So I could answer any other questions as we go to question time, but that's kind of my brief little elevator pitch. So it's great to see all of you here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gabe. Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Algaze.
On mute. Can you hear me? Yes, thumbs up. Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Algaze. I'm born and raised in Puerto Rico. First language is Spanish. I'm also first generation. I actually been around mainland US 5 years. I'm also gay. I just like Sangeeta was saying in the video, when I started applying to work as faculty at UCI, the first thing that people told me was, "Why are you going there?" And it's actually transformed pretty much in a short amount of time. There is a lot of interest in diversity. I'm not only part of the diversity group here in the emergency department. I also started the Residents and Scholars Fellowship Academy, and is a program that is it's intended to be like a pipeline for to keep talent that is from underrepresented backgrounds in academia, and we offer mentorship to residents, fellows, and PhD who would like to stay in academia. So we have a good network of people that want to help each other, and we provide a lot of services to students that just want to continue in academia. What else? I'm also part of the task force of the diversity and inclusion from the School of Medicine. So we also have a seat on that table. I'm very interested in LGBTQ issues. We recently learned how to change in Epic the name and the gender of the patient, so that when you go into a patient's room, you call them by the correct name and gender, which I think is like a pretty big thing. And then we're also planning other research to make their experience better.
Great, thank you so much. One thing that I wanted to add that I didn't mention when I was speaking was we are creating a more formal curriculum regarding social determinants of health. I think we all realize how important social determinants of health are in impacting a patient's health and their healthcare decision making. And there's so many things, you know, we can make a lot of assumptions, especially in the emergency department where we only have brief interactions with patients. We don't have these lifelong relationships that maybe primary care gets to have with their patients. So it's very easy to make assumptions about our patients when they come in. And that's something that we need to avoid doing. We need to understand all of the social factors that play into their health. So I started doing one for the School of Medicine for our Clinical Foundations program. And also we're working on one for the residency. So we have our first session actually tomorrow. It's a longitudinal curriculum that's going to be spanning approximately 18 months. So the plan is to go through the curriculum twice in each resident's time with us during the 3 years. So we'll start with our initial session tomorrow, and then Dr. Sudari is going to be heading up our next session in September, where we're going to be talking about racism in healthcare. So we talk about things like poverty, racism, food insecurity, housing resources, incarceration, and a lot of the intersectionality that happens in all of those different areas. So we have about 18 to 20 different topics that we're going to be covering, sort of 1 or 2 per month. And if you guys have any questions about that, I can certainly answer some of those when we do our question and answer session. This kind of leads into Dr. Victor Cisneros. He's one of our fellows. He just graduated from our residency program, so he's also a great resource of information on the residency program. So I'll let Victor talk a little bit about his work.
It's an honor to be here, and it's amazing to see such beautiful faces here. I wish I could see you guys in person, but given this COVID environment, you know, this is what we have to do. So it's, you know, pat on the back to giving your time and being part of this. I think it's amazing that we have all these awesome applicants. But like Sangeeta said, Dr. Zakaria, I'm a newly fellow. I graduated a couple months ago from the program. And so my fellowship is in research population health and social emergency medicine. It's a fellowship that's kind of been around for a little bit, but I'm tailoring it to a brand new subspecialty in emergency medicine, which is like rising pretty quick, if you guys all know, and I'm sure a lot of people are super excited about it, which is social emergency medicine, focusing at like the social determinants of health in emergency medicine. It's been around in other specialties in like internal medicine, pediatrics, family medicines, but it's fairly new in EM. So if you guys have any questions, for sure, by all means. A little bit of background on myself. I am a lifer at UCI. I've been around for a while. I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico. I came here, I immigrated here when I was 2 years old. This is way before DACA, so I knew, although I was an illegal immigrant for one point, I had to go through all this kind of diversity and, you know, obstacles and immigration and law. If you guys have any questions with that, by all means, I'm definitely the guy to talk to. Went to undergrad at Cal Poly Pomona, worked after undergrad as an engineer. Never thought med school was you know, something that was attainable for me. Had a change of career later on in life and decided to do a post-bac, and that's how I ended up at UCI. In 2006, I was an undergrad post-bac student and have never left. I did med school here at UCI. I did the Prime LC program, which is a program that focuses on the medical education for the Latino community. Pretty much it trains leaders, educators, health policy, focuses on the social determinants of health. So I've been breathing and eating and living the social determinants of health since I was young and as a medical student, you know. And now the fellowship is kind of focusing on that. I was a resident for the last 3 years here. So if you have any questions about UCI, any questions about Orange County, which is very, don't let, you know, like Zakaria and all the guys that were saying, a lot of times people get overshadowed by the Rio Laguna Beach and all the crazy stuff you see on TV. Very diverse. Northern Orange County, where the hospital is at, is very underserved, very diverse patient population. I would say probably definitely more than 50% of our patients are Latino or Latinas. And a lot of them don't speak English. So there's shifts like Dr. Sakura was saying in her video that you go by where you're just speaking Spanish. We see a lot of Vietnamese patients. We see a lot of very diverse populations because of Disneyland. Disneyland is around. It's opening back up. So we see people from all over the world. Yes, Southern Orange County is a little bit more affluent. So if you divide the county in half, a little bit more affluent, different patient population. But I think that's what gives the specific, unique training that you will see the rich lady from Beverly Hills and Newport Beach, but also you'll see the homeless guy under the bridge when you come to UCI. And obviously, like we said, we're definitely recruiting diverse medical students because we truly believe in this committee and everybody at UCI that your patient population and your doctor should mirror image each other, right? If you, otherwise, anyway, so if you have any questions, feel free to, about residency, about primacy, about public health or social EM, by all means. I'm very involved with AEM at the national level, EMRA at the national level too. So one of my interests is public health and public policy. So if you guys have any questions or interest in that, by all means, just hit me up.
Thank you, Victor. Could you also just add like a 1-minute summary of the food insecurity work that you're doing?
Oh yeah. So I started this as a medical student, and then I kind of continued as a resident. We've been screening for food insecurity in the emergency department, obviously really important now with COVID. In addition to food insecurity, we're starting to look at homelessness and how social workers get involved with emergency physicians. But the biggest thing that I've been doing in the last 3 years is just teaming up with a nonprofit called Waste Not OC, and a lot of leaders and shakers in the community, and screening for food insecurity and trying to connect people in the emergency department to resources out in the community. As you know, sometimes people come in for things that are not necessarily medically related, but sometimes it's just handing out a meal or making sure that they address some of these social issues that are bringing these patients in.
Great, thank you so much. And we have one of our senior residents, Matt Whited, on as well. Matt, if you could say a few things.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming and being a part of this tonight. I am very interested in LGBT research, especially amongst the transgender community. My pronouns are he, his, him. I think that it's important that we utilize all of our faculty and our residents in the best way to make sure that when somebody comes to us in a crisis, that they're able to come to us and know that we're going to be a safe place for them. Southern California has one of the largest LGBT populations in the nation. And so UCI has an opportunity to be at the forefront of research and providing the best care possible for members of the LGBT community. And just like people who are familiar with the community know, emergency visits for somebody who is transgender or LGBT can often be associated with suicide, with depression. And so they're coming in to the emergency department oftentimes because they're already feeling they're already feeling like society, the world, their parents, their family don't accept them. And so in the emergency department currently, you walk in, you get seen by somebody at intake, nurses in triage, a doctor in triage, a resident, you see consultants there. You interact with so many people. And so if every person that walks in there misgenders a patient, uses an incorrect name, how much of that are we adding? How much stress and crisis are we actually adding to those patients? And so what we're working on right now is starting up research to determine how we can better serve the transgender community. And we're going to loop in several of the interns as well once the project gets off its feet. We're also planning to have multiple events coming up this next June to celebrate Pride. We've already started talking to the department chair, Chris Fox, who is very supportive of initiatives to be loud and be proud and put out pride flags in the coming year. And so we have several new initiatives that we have that we're going to be implementing as the year goes on. So we're excited. Things, during COVID have shifted a little bit in what we're able to do when we gather together. But we still have big plans, big dreams. I think that the committee that we see here have all contributed such great work, and we are looking for people to come and be a part of that with us and to expand that work. And so if any of you have any questions, please come talk to me. I was a little gay boy that grew up in Texas. I moved to Utah later in my life. Those are two locations where being LGBT is definitely not the norm, and there are places where a lot of people othered me and treated me differently or discounted my opinions because of that. And when I ended up going back to Texas for medical school, I had one of the greatest opportunities ever, because it was like starting afresh in a place where there weren't already safeguards for LGBT patients. There weren't already organizations of medical students that focus on LGBT health. And so from the ground up, we built committees. We had our first Texas Alliance of GLBT Health that I was part of the planning committee for, where we brought in people from all over. And we are looking to incorporate several of those things here at UCI. And luckily we have great faculty who are members of the community, like Dr. Algaze, and we have great support from, you've met faculty members and fellows here who literally will support us in any of our initiatives to highlight diversity, to bring in more diverse applicants, and to make UCI the most inclusive place possible. Our patients speak Spanish. Our patients speak almost any language that you can think of here in Orange County. I think there's 93 different populations of individual people that live in Orange County. And so it's not uncommon to speak Spanish, Korean, just within 20 minutes of each other, and then not even speak English for 2 hours. If you're a Spanish speaker like myself, you will find that you are able to really give back to different communities if you choose to come here, and if you, you can jump right into any opportunity.
Great, thank you so much, Matt. One of our other fellows, Ronnie Rivera, wanted to join, but he ended up having a shift. I think he may be listening in, but I'm not sure if he's in a place where he can offer any comments right now. So
I'm here.
Oh, hey, you are. So Ronnie's one of our new fellows. You can go ahead and introduce yourself and some of the work that you've done.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Rivera. I am one of the new medical education fellows. I will just I'm a non-traditional medical student in that I worked for Bank of America for about 10 years before I returned to education and went to medical school. Went to medical school at UCLA. I ended up doing residency in Brooklyn, New York at Kings County, SUNY Downstate. But I am living proof that California will always bring you back. I love it here in California, and I have to say that I was wooed away by an incredible team of people here at UCI who just showed that they can be some of the most compassionate and interested in my development, and just a wonderful team of people. I was immediately very welcomed in, and I felt like there is such a family here because so many people have known each other for so long. And everyone's just really genuinely interested in the health and well-being of each other. And if it's not a text message or an email or a phone call, I feel like people check in on me frequently, especially now during COVID, where our residents and our attendings and our patients are going through such trifling times, and it's very difficult for them. Everybody's really just diving in to support each other. And I think that's one of the most important things to me in choosing a place to do residency or to work even, is that you have a family or someone who is really interested in you and you can rely on them, because we spend a lot more time with our coworkers than we do our family sometimes. And so having a work family has been such a wonderful welcome back to California and made my transition so easy. But to give you a little bit of my background, Italian Puerto Rican family from New York. So I was really interested in working in communities like the communities I grew up in. And I ended up focusing most of my research and residency and hopefully into fellowship on social determinants of health. One of my big plans is to try to create a health literacy program for like K through 12 health literacy program, because I feel like we don't know a lot about our bodies, and our education system hasn't really done well to help us know enough about our bodies. But I'm really interested in how, I think someone also touched upon it earlier, how different sets of stigma affect people's ability to receive and even seek out care. And that, you have stigma based on color, gender, religion, socioeconomic status, and these things stack on each other. And, before someone even makes the decision to go seek out care in the emergency room, they've often had to negotiate what television, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the news, their friends, their family, think about whatever's going on with them. And it can make someone delay their care or not seek out care until it is an absolute emergency and things are pretty dire. So I'm very interested in how those things affect the way people seek out care, but also in how we can, as physicians, make every point of contact in the healthcare system a positive one that people will continue to trust us and continue to seek out care. So yeah, it's a really incredible environment at UCI. I agree with the sentiment that I don't speak English for about half the shift. It's a very diverse population, highly Vietnamese also so if you're really interested in seeing how different populations interact in the same area, it's a really unique place to come and practice. So I really appreciate you all for coming on the call and spending time with us to get to know us a little bit better, and hopefully we can woo you into our family like they did to me.
Thanks so much, Ronnie. Last but certainly not least, we have two of our interns who are just a month into surviving their intern year. So obviously they don't have a ton of experience with the Committee for Inclusive Excellence at UCI yet, because they've still just been new to us and just trying to survive their first month of intern year. But Callie and Kenneth are both on the line, and I just wanted, if you guys have a second, just introduce yourselves. And then both of you guys I know have done work with underserved communities in the past. If you just want to talk, just give a brief summary of things that you've done in the past or something that you hope to do at UCI, or maybe something that brought you to UCI. Callie?
Hi, I'm Callie. I'm an intern here. I think Matt and I's background is like almost the same. I'm also queer, born and raised in Texas. I was actually raised on a farm, so I can bring a little bit of that rural Southern perspective. I have about 10 years of research experience with people living with HIV and LGBT community research. More recently, my research has gravitated towards clinical informatics and looking at the quality of healthcare, particularly with bisexual health and trans populations. I hope to continue to do that work here, looking at structured and unstructured data and how we're interacting with those patients and the quality of care that they're receiving. One thing that actually brought me here was at the interview dinner, Matt sought me out and said, I want to do research with you. I read your application, and just that sort of passion, I really appreciated, and it aligned well with my ideals. And then in my interview, there were several tangible things that different people that I was interviewing with said, oh, like you're interested in LGBTQ health and disparities. There are opportunities for curriculum development and like several things that were tangible that they're working on. And I really appreciated that, and that really gravitated me towards here. So I'm going to put my email and my phone number in the chat. Feel free to email me or text me if you have questions about the program in general. Please don't call me because I don't like to talk on the phone. But hope to see some of y'all in the future.
Thanks so much, Callie. Kenneth, are you still on the line? I know you were walking. I don't know if you're headed into a shift. I think we may have lost Kenneth. I think he was heading into the hospital right at the beginning of the meeting. So Kenneth is one of our interns. He's also on our website if anyone wants to reach out to him. But just to give you a little bit of my background, since I didn't really tell you my background. So I'm Indian. I was born and raised in the U.S. in the cornfields of Southern California. I live in Southern California now, in Southern Indiana, which is not diverse. And so I definitely had that experience that Matt was describing of always being othered all growing up. So most of my life growing up in Indiana, and then I lived in New York for a little bit. I was a second grade bilingual teacher in the South Bronx for a couple of years doing some education work out there. And then I went to Indiana University again for med school, stopped out in the middle and went to Boston to study public health. So within public health, my focus was on clinical program implementation in developing countries. And more specifically, I studied a lot of maternal mortality and mother-to-child transmission of infectious disease in Latin American Caribbean countries. So that's where most of my research was. And I will be joining an executive board for a global foundation this week to get my feet back into the global health world as well. So doing just a lot of work with underserved populations and really focusing on disparities. Went to residency at University of Chicago, which is on the south side of Chicago, which is an incredibly diverse patient population and a very diverse residency as well. So that's something that's always been very important to me. And one of the reasons that I really want to grow the already diverse program and already diverse patient population that we have. I just want to keep working at it. So at this point, I know that many of the committee members have put their contact information, and I see that there's a question in the chat: what resources does the program provide for folks who are interested in learning Spanish, Vietnamese, etc.? So as far as the residency program, the School of Medicine actually has a medical Spanish class that the Prime LC students lead. So that's something that you can be involved in. You can also use some of your residency education funds to purchase programs like, different language programs like Rosetta Stone or something like that. So that way you can learn on your own pace. The university of itself does offer medical Spanish classes as well. There was a class that I know a couple of the residents a couple of years ago signed up for. The only thing that's a little bit different, even though that is available to you guys at no cost, is that with an emergency medicine schedule, it's often difficult to participate in classes that are regularly scheduled. Given COVID and most classes are now virtual, that may now be another opportunity for you guys. So those are some of the Spanish resources. As far as learning Spanish for Vietnamese, I'm not sure about resources to learn Vietnamese, but that's a great question we can certainly look into. Kenneth is back, I hear. Kenneth, are you on the line?
Oh yeah, my bad. I was walking home.
No, it's okay. I knew that I saw that you were in transit. So before we open up to questions, so we were just going around, everyone was introducing themselves from the committee and just talking a little bit about our backgrounds and work that we've done in diversity or under-resourced population. So just wanted you to introduce yourself and then talk about any work you've done in the past, and then maybe tell them one reason that you decided to come to UCI.
Okay. Hello guys, my name is Kenneth Sarpong. So I'm originally from Toronto, so I came out here to med school at Loma Linda, and kind of some of the work I did was in San Bernardino County. If many of you guys don't know, it's like one of the most violent places, especially in California. A lot of poverty over there. So throughout my tenure during med school, I was acting as SNMA president with the Student National Medical Association, where the aim is to kind of develop minority students to become competent physicians. So what we do is, go into these communities every weekend, mentor these kids as well too. We would have pre-med drives as well too, and we would just have food drives and just other stuff to kind of just help out the minority individuals within that community. So what kind of lured me to UCI was that it just seemed when I came to the interview, everybody was just so passionate about, helping the underserved community. Everybody was really aiming to make this residency program very diverse. And it just seemed like everybody had that same vision. And I was like, why not come to a place where, everybody seems happy, everybody's coming from different places, and they want to change the nature of the program, to have different, thoughts, ideas, and people to make up this program to just make it better, going on in the future. So I feel like, out of all my options, this was going to be the best option for me. So that's why I came to UCI.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kenneth. So now for the last 20 minutes or so, I just wanted to open it up to all of you who are participating on the call. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask a question, or if you prefer, you can type it in the chat, and I'm keeping an eye on the chat as well. So just any and all questions, you can either direct them to one particular person, or you can talk to just everybody in general. So one question I see in the chat is, for the 18-month social determinant of health curriculum, are residents able to lead topics, classes, discussions about specific topics they're passionate about? Absolutely. That's a great question. So in our last meeting, when we were doing some curriculum planning, we discussed that topic in particular. And so there's a chief resident who's in charge of planning each conference block. Each block lasts typically 4 weeks. So the chief resident is always involved, but we're sending out an email to any residents, since obviously this is a new curriculum that we're just starting with. And absolutely, if you are interested in a particular topic, so in the email, we're just going to lay out all of the topics that are part of the 18-month curriculum. And then anybody who is interested in one or more of the topics is welcome to jump on. And we're just trying to decide the dates for different topics right now, because some people may have a tougher rotation or a lighter rotation. So even if they're interested in a topic, they may just not have the time to work on it at that particular time. So we want to make sure they have that calendar. That's why we haven't sent it out yet. But as soon as we have the tentative dates, we will send out a list of all of the topics and dates so that way residents can join. Great question.
Sorry.
Any other questions you guys have? Good question. So can you expand on opportunities for residents to get involved in global health? Typically, I am super passionate about global health. It's not that I'm not right now, it's just given COVID, we are under severe travel restrictions. So unfortunately, right now, the residents are not able to go anywhere. In the past, we've had residents go to countries all around the world, just depending on what people are interested in. People have gone to various countries in Africa. People have gone to places in South Asia, East Asia, Central America, the Caribbean. So there are lots of different places to get involved. And even though right now I can't formally have you participate in any programs. However, given my experience in global health, I am still very connected to the global health world, as are other people in the department. So we all have a lot of connections. So formally, our department cannot sponsor you to go on any of these trips or count it for elective credit. However, I'm happy to put you in touch with people if you have the interest to pursue that on your own.
Sangeeta, can I jump in real quick?
Yes, please. This is Shannon Toohey, our program director.
Hey guys, sorry I wasn't here for I've been here for the whole thing. I've been listening. You guys are doing an awesome job. Sorry, I'm on shift. So I just want to jump into one thing. So you guys do a stipend each year that could potentially be used for it. It's just a little tricky how. And then Sangeeta is correct. In general, we can't give elective credit. And this is a problem with all UCs. So any UC that you go to is going to have the same problem. It came down from the office of the president. It basically was an issue of a whole lot of people taking really nice like vacations and calling them Spanish electives. And they kind of caught on. And so you can get credit for international experiences. The pile of paperwork that has to get approved by GME is about this thick. And the few residents I've handed it to have kind of been like, no thanks. But there is a process to get it approved. I just haven't had a resident that wanted that to go that badly. What we've done for most residents is just moving their vacation around. So they went from, we basically blocked all of their vacation into a single month. We put their elective weeks elsewhere. And then we let them go. So like we had someone who planned a trip to Africa. It actually ended up falling through due to the other end, the end of the clinic in Africa. So she didn't go, but she had it all set up. And then we had another one go to Everest 2 years ago. So basically we just moved all their vacation and then we put their elective weeks elsewhere. And then they did their elective hours doing something else like teaching, doing diversity things that they just did throughout the year or during those other weeks. So there's ways around the process, but what Sangeeta said is technically correct.
Thank you, Shannon. Have a good shift.
There's a Center for Mental Health and Inclusion that it's in the works that I'm pretty sure that's going to make everything a little bit easier, because then it's going to have like funding and people that are going to be in charge of this, but it's not done yet. But you still have a lot of faculty that are very involved in global health, like Sangeeta, myself, Dr. Rowe, that we actually actively, at least myself, like go and do global health every year.
So there's another question directed for Victor. One of the students wants to hear a little bit more about projects you're planning for fellowship.
Yeah, so there's a couple projects. So obviously one of them was the food insecurity that I've been doing for a couple years already. The other thing is looking at homelessness. The other thing is that we're looking at this new telemedicine and looking at telemedicine access and for looking at pretty much comparing how telemedicine and social determinants come into hand and seeing if people with like, you know, from different backgrounds, different languages, and different cultures have the same access now with this new COVID environment and a lot of the outpatient kind of appointments being via telemedicine. So that's something that Dr. Spiegelman, one of our current fellows in informatics, I'm possibly teaming up with them and some of our trauma surgeons. Another thing that in the works with this fellowship is looking at the pediatric population. If you come here, you'll be rotating at the Children's Hospital of Orange County, CHOC, which is a level 1 pediatric trauma center here in Orange County, which is like a mile away from UC Irvine. And so there's a lot of transiently homeless pediatric population. What that means is they're living in motels or living in cars. It's shockingly about 25% of the pediatric population in Orange County is transiently homeless. That's crazy. And this is a county that's supposedly affluent, right? So this, again, it goes into the misconceptions of what the county represents. The other thing, to go back to the Spanish thing, I am in talks with some of the Prime LC students. As a former Prime alumni, I'm very close to the Prime director and a lot of the Prime students, a lot of mentorship, and the Prime network is really big and a lot of UCs. And so I'm in talks about maybe, and this is a little spoiler alert with some of the faculty, I haven't even reached out to the faculty, maybe creating a Spanish curriculum in order to teach the residents, like, intermediate, advanced and moderate level of skills, maybe emulate it to see what other programs are doing. And we can create a curriculum where we could use, an HMP and how to teach residents how to do a proper HMP in Spanish. I don't know Vietnamese yet, because obviously my Vietnamese is not that great, but obviously Spanish is where I excel and a lot of my background, and we have a lot of excited medical students. So Luis and other people who are interested, I know they put this question, by all means, come and help me do this next year or the following years, or the next fellow in my place, or the faculty that are here in the future. Obviously we need more champions. So if this is something that you're interested, it's totally doable. From my experience as a resident, a medical student, now as a fellow, the leadership and the faculty are very supportive of a lot of ideas, as long as you have a tangible plan and it's something that's executable and it's for the improvement of the program. I don't see why not. And so there's a lot of Prime LC students that you say they're excited about bringing maybe Spanish curriculum to the residency program, and I don't see why not, and something that obviously in the works. But those are a couple of the projects. By all means, feel free to email me. I will, if you email me, then I will give you my cell phone number. I'm hesitant to do it because then I'll get a bunch of random text messages. And I'm like, who is this? But by all means, email me and we can talk on the phone. We can text message, and I can give you more specific details on any of the specific projects that I'm kind of working on. But if it's anything involving social EM at the national, local level, by all means, I've been doing a lot of work. And then public health. I got my master's in public health here at UC Irvine. So I know a lot of the local community very well, a lot of the outpatient community, and been working a lot with family medicine and internal medicine. And so I think the sky's the limit if you're interested in public health and social EM.
Thank you, Victor. Just to add on to what Victor's talking about for the opportunities for language learning, one of the things that I was doing at the School of Medicine this year is, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Bates physical exam videos that are, in my opinion, atrocious. They're so old and boring and dry, and I fall asleep 2 minutes into them. And so I always felt bad asking the medical students to watch those to learn how to do physical exams. So one of the other faculty that works at the school, that teaches at the School of Medicine, she and I actually just recreated all of the physical exam videos based off of Bates, but sort of more modern, updated. So she did everything in English, and then I did a version of the Spanish, or the videos completely in Spanish. So just how to talk to a patient, how to talk them through an exam. So if somebody has at least basic knowledge of Spanish, if you wanted to watch those videos, that's another tool you can use. We're just in the editing process right now, but we'll have them published soon, just to see what are phrases you can use if you're trying to talk somebody through a neuro exam or an HENT exam or something like that. So just another tool that we could use. So we've got.
And then, I just want to piggyback on. So in California, if you're not, I don't know if everyone here is from California or not. California has a resident association, or a resident, what am I trying to say? Union. And so our residency union is all the residents in the state of California, and we have guaranteed money that can be used for various ideas, conferences, and our department has historically always given us more money to do those projects than is required by the union itself. And so if you come here with an idea, or if you want to learn Spanish and want to buy textbooks and apps and things like that to learn medical Spanish or Vietnamese or any other language, the department will support you, and that money is available. And so because we have a union, it's a more substantial amount than I think you'll find probably anywhere else in the United States.
Great, thank you guys. So we have about 10 minutes left of the session. Any other questions that you guys have for us?
I had a quick question. Oh, go ahead.
All right, go ahead, Melody. Sorry.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Melody. Thanks so much for holding this session. I have a quick question about medical education and how it intersects with social determinants of health, besides just teaching about it to med students and residents. This might be more of a question for Dr. Rivera, since I know he's the medical education fellow. Thanks.
So I've only been here for a couple of weeks now, but I think the most important thing to know about just transitioning
Ronnie,
from
I think your audio is cutting out quite a bit. So maybe instead of Dr. answering, Dr. Sudario is actually one of our medical education technology fellows who just graduated in June and then joined as faculty.
World is that with the first thing that we have, and that's what's going to be coming out. Okay, want to take over for me?
Yeah, I'll have Gabe take over if you don't mind.
I don't know what Ronnie was going to say, but what I can say is, one, our education faculty here is incredibly supportive and is all in on all facets of kind of making sure that the social determinants of health are woven into our curriculum. Now, that being said, there are some other ways that we integrate it into more of our clinical work. So for example, on the clerkship level, Dr. Scaria has spearheaded with our prime medical students. Our medical students, anyone who rotates with us, and we're in a required clerkship for our fourth year med students here, has to identify a patient, identify one of their barriers to health or a social determinant of their health, and talk with one of our social workers to get a sense of how we could address that issue. They do a write-up on it that's required to pass the course, and then to honor the course, if they're not going into EM, they have to do a infographic to help the emergency department learn about some of these resources out there, and we kind of curate the best infographics, and we're starting this curriculum, so hopefully we'll have a good either binder or digital archive of some of these infographics. So that's just one way that we integrate it. But I think on the more personal level, I think something that's been important to me, and I've seen even the culture change over the 2 years, is just how do we talk, how do we interact, how do we speak about our patients in the department, and just simply making sure that our culture is truly inclusive, right? That we're not just putting lip service to it, but that the way we speak about patients does not use any other language, where we really call people out when maybe something is inappropriate, and in an appropriate way, not in front of everybody, but really try to bring these things up in real time. And we can't say we're the perfect program out there that's doing diversity perfectly, but we have a ton of people who are interested in bettering ourselves and then teaching those who might not be as comfortable or interested in going as deep as us, to make sure that the culture fits. And I think this is slowly going to change over time. It's probably the most important tangible aspect of the things we can do here.
Can I add to that? I just want to say that in addition to everything that Dr. Sudario just said, we have one of the awesomest educational team, to be honest with you. As a resident and as a medical student, when I rotated at other places, obviously I'm biased because I went to this program, but when I rotated other places, which are going to be unnamed, I was just impressed how much dedication they put on our conferences, from escape rooms to interactive conferences to treasure hunts to visual diagnosis. So you're not going to be bored when you go to conferences. Well, maybe if you're tired post night shifts once in a while, but I think the Med Tech fellows and all the leadership, Zachariah, Shannon Tui, Ray, Dr. Weekman, who I don't know if you guys know, he's super big Apple famous educational guy in the School of Medicine. They do a phenomenal job in terms of making sure you're always on your toes and learning in your conferences. And it was nothing like I saw anywhere else, when I'm wow, this is crazy. And our conferences are just Wednesday morning from 7:30 to noon, but it's very high yield and you get a lot of it out of it. And so I think it's phenomenal. We have Jet EM, they build their own journal in education, which is crazy, which is gaining traction. In terms of research, obviously, I'm biased, we do a lot of research with social determinants of health. It's fairly new. I'm kind of the new fellow in social EM. historically it's been like injury prevention and population health in general. We have great mentors in that. But I think the sky's the limit. If you have an idea and if you're passionate about it, I think the moral of the story is the faculty is very supported and you could do it. If you have the drive and you have the curiosity and you want to get it done, I've never not been supported by the faculty or co-residents here in my program.
And just to add to that, Melody, to answer, so I think that was, you got a lot of the didactic response. And I think that from the clinical aspect of incorporating social determinants of health and looking at social aspects of healthcare, I think whether you go to UCI or no matter what emergency department you're working in, the nature of our career in emergency medicine just automatically brings to light all of the different social factors that patients go through. And so I think no matter which program you attend clinically as an EM resident, you're just going to be immersed in that day in and day out because every single patient has social factors. There's not a single person in the world that's not affected by something that affects their healthcare, whether it's cultural or whether it's racial or whether it's a language issue or whether it's a socioeconomic issue or religious influences on their healthcare decisions. Everybody is bringing some social aspect into their healthcare process. So I think that emergency medicine in and of itself, you just get that clinical exposure to social determinants every single shift. And we had another question.
That's exactly what I was going to say, actually, is that what better way for you to experience social determinants of health from the classroom to the emergency room by just jumping into a place where you're going to experience what the patients are going through, and you're going to learn their stories, and you're going to actually have access to people. And this is how you learn about culture. This is how you learn about language. This is how you learn about the struggles of our patients, is by being there in a place where you serve those people. And I think UCI just uniquely has so many different groups to learn from that it's just going to, you'll have a lot of active learning, but there'll just be a ton of passive learning.
Exactly.
And as like a prime example, Vic Cisneros was on shift. He was teaching one of our attendings. This was right before he graduated. He was teaching our attendings about social determinants, social EM. He let us know that the Latinx community was believing that if they came to the hospital that they were going to die. And so they were avoiding coming in because they thought that if they came in that they would die. And so he made us aware of that feeling among the community of the Latinx community. So when I talk to my patients now who are Spanish speaking patients, I tell them, tell your friends, tell your family that if they're feeling this, the discharge instructions that I give them, I ask them to tell their families now, to tell them that we want them to come in if they have this, and that we can take care of them better if they come in early rather than late. And that and I try and have that, but that's because we have an open residency where a resident at the time can teach the attending, can teach his co-residents, and then we can take that directly to our patients and immediately address a concern that was affecting the Latinx community that comes to UCI specifically.
Good example, Matt. I think there was another question that.
Yeah, I had a last question.
Yeah.
First of all, I wasn't aware that UCI was so involved in diversity and inclusion. I think that's really awesome. But just a quick question, just branching off like the global medicine topic. Are you guys involved at all with like refugee health and like programs that kind of cater towards their specific needs, like around in Southern California? That was just my question.
So we do have a lot of connections with border health. I think when being in Southern California and having the border so close by, through the School of Medicine and also through various residency programs at UCI, not just emergency medicine, there are several residents, faculty, and medical students who go down and work at clinics along the border, sometimes on the Mexico side, sometimes on the US side. Sometimes they're in California, or sometimes they cross over state lines as well. So I think when it comes to refugee health, that's where, given recent political changes and the number of people that are sort of amassing at the borders, that's become a bigger need. With COVID, there have been some complications with, just trying to limit exposure for certain residents and students and things like that. So, for example, our students have this clinic called Flying Samaritans, and so on Saturdays they would go down to the border and offer and care for people trying to cross the border, and anybody who needed care. It didn't even matter if they were trying to cross the border or not. If they were just anywhere within accessible distance of the clinic, that was an option for them. We had to put some of the visits on hold just because the medical school is trying to protect the medical students from any unnecessary exposures to try to prevent an outbreak within the medical school. But we are looking into ways to open that back up. Certainly, if there's any interest for working with other, that's the most geographically convenient population for us to work with if you're thinking about refugee health. If there are any specific populations that you're interested in working with that are maybe not geographically local, but that it's just for whatever reason you have a particular interest in that population, we're certainly willing to support any efforts and get you connected with any particular programs or populations.
Just to add on that, obviously with the Latinx community, like if you're interested, Border Angels, Enrico Morones, I worked with him very closely when I was a Prime LC student. And then if you're interested in that, a community, he does a lot of refugee work in the border, like Dr. Zakaria mentioned. The med school is very involved with that. The Prime LC program is. Definitely more than happy to give you his connection and his number, and his email. He's very public, well-known all over. He's been on Fox News and going against rants and a bunch of other, CNN, and he's pretty vocal guy up there, very kind of charismatic and animated, but he does a lot of work with refugees. And I'm sure if you're interested in other communities, he probably has contact people in terms of in that area. So the opportunities are there.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, of course. We are at our hour mark. We don't want to keep you guys. We know that some of you may be coming in from the East Coast and it's getting pretty late. But just wanted to see if there are any final questions, either over the chat or if you want to unmute and ask any final questions. All right, so I know that many people have already put their email addresses in the chat. I'm putting mine in here right now. Feel free to email me. I think I can speak for all of us when I say that if we don't get back to you right away, we do work, it's the ED. We all work different shifts and crazy hours, so we may be on shift or sleeping because we worked an overnight, but we will get back to you as soon as possible. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, the session was recorded, so you can look back if you want to review anything from the past. Thank you guys so much for participating. We're really excited to see such an interested group, and we hope to interact more with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.